In the spring of 1944, Warsaw, the capital of Poland, was a city caught in the throes of despair and determination. The German occupation had turned its vibrant streets into a landscape of fear, oppression, and resistance. The once bustling marketplaces, filled with the sounds of merchants and laughter, were now shadowed by the presence of German soldiers, their uniforms a stark reminder of the control they wielded over the populace. Yet, beneath this oppressive atmosphere, a quiet revolution was brewing, one that would challenge the very foundations of the occupiers' authority. The German commanders stationed in Warsaw, entrenched in their strategic assessments, viewed the city primarily as a military stronghold. They focused on the movements of male resistance fighters, dismissing the contributions of women as inconsequential. To them, the women of Warsaw were mere housewives, their lives confined to the domestic sphere. This perception was not only a reflection of their patriarchal worldview but also a grave miscalculation. The women of Warsaw were not passive observers. They were active participants in the resistance, gathering intelligence, coordinating logistics, and preparing for a confrontation that would soon erupt into open rebellion. By the time the winter frost melted away, the city began to stir with the promise of spring. The women, often overlooked, were quietly organizing themselves into networks of resistance. They transformed their homes into safe havens for insurgents, their kitchens into makeshift armories, and their daily routines into acts of defiance. The German commanders, blinded by their arrogance, failed to recognize the duality of these women's existence. By day, they navigated the mundane tasks of occupied life, but by night, they became architects of resistance, plotting actions that would soon shake the very core of German control. The streets of Warsaw, with their intricate web of alleys and neighborhoods, served as both a battleground and a sanctuary. The women of the Armia Krajowa, Home Army, utilized their intimate knowledge of the city to their advantage, moving through the urban landscape with a stealth that eluded the occupying forces. They understood that their survival depended on their ability to blend into the fabric of everyday life while simultaneously preparing for the storm that was about to break. This was the calm before the storm, a period of preparation that would soon culminate in the Warsaw Uprising, a defining moment in the history of Polish resistance. By the time the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, the women of Warsaw gathered in small groups, sharing information and strategizing their next moves. They were driven by a fierce loyalty to their homeland, a desire to reclaim their city from the clutches of tyranny. The German commanders, in their derision, had underestimated the resolve of these women, a miscalculation that would soon prove to be their undoing. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would reveal the true strength and ingenuity of the Polish women, a force that would rise to challenge the occupiers' assumptions and alter the course of history. To understand the significance of the women's role in the Warsaw Uprising, one must first grasp the historical context of Poland during World War II. Following the invasion of Poland in September 1939, the country was thrust into a brutal occupation that would last for nearly 6 years. The German forces implemented a regime of terror, marked by mass arrests, executions, and the systematic dismantling of Polish culture and society. Warsaw, once a thriving metropolis, became a symbol of suffering and resilience, as its inhabitants struggled to survive under the weight of oppression. The Armia Krajowa, or Home Army, emerged as the principal resistance movement in Poland, uniting various factions of the Polish underground. Established in 1942, the Home Army operated under the auspices of the Polish government in exile, which was based in London. Its primary objective was to conduct sabotage operations against the German occupiers and to prepare for a potential uprising that would coincide with the advancing Allied forces. The Home Army was predominantly male, yet women played an increasingly vital role in its operations, often serving in capacities that were essential to the resistance's success. Daily life in Warsaw during the occupation was characterized by scarcity and fear. Food rationing was a constant struggle, and the black market flourished as residents sought to procure basic necessities. The German authorities imposed strict curfews, and the presence of Gestapo agents instilled a pervasive sense of paranoia. Yet, amidst this bleak reality, the spirit of resistance persisted. The women of Warsaw, often relegated to the domestic sphere, found ways to contribute to the resistance movement, using their roles as mothers, daughters, and wives to gather intelligence and support the insurgents. The logistics of resistance were complex and fraught with danger. Women like Christina and Maria utilized their everyday activities to mask their involvement in the underground movement. Christina, a mother of two, transformed her daily errands into reconnaissance missions, observing German troop movements and reporting back to the Home Army. Maria, a skilled seamstress, ingeniously incorporated hidden compartments into clothing, facilitating the transport of weapons and documents. Their actions exemplified the resourcefulness of women in the resistance, who turned the mundane into the extraordinary. When the summer of 1944 approached, the atmosphere in Warsaw grew increasingly charged. The Allied forces were making significant advances in Europe, and the Polish resistance was determined to capitalize on this momentum. The Home Army began to lay the groundwork for the Warsaw Uprising, a bold and risky endeavor that would require the full participation of its members, including the women who had been integral to its operations. The uprising was not merely a military action, it was a declaration of national identity and a fight for freedom against the backdrop of occupation. The German commanders, entrenched in their patriarchal worldview, failed to recognize the significance of the women's contributions. Their intelligence reports focused solely on the movements of male partisans, dismissing the vital roles played by women in the resistance. This oversight would prove to be a critical error, as the women of Warsaw were not merely supporting the insurgents, they were essential to the planning and execution of the uprising. As the summer sun beat down on the city, the women prepared for the moment that would redefine their roles and challenge the occupiers' assumptions. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would test the limits of courage and ingenuity. The women of the Home Army, dismissed as inconsequential, were ready to step out of the shadows and into the forefront of the resistance. They were warriors, prepared to fight for their city and their freedom, driven by a fierce loyalty to their homeland and a desire to reclaim their lives from the grip of tyranny. The coming months would reveal the true power of these women, a force that would rise to challenge the occupiers and alter the course of history in Warsaw. On August 1, 1944, the streets of Warsaw erupted in a cacophony of gunfire and explosions. The long-awaited Warsaw Uprising had begun, a bold attempt by the Polish resistance to liberate the city from German occupation. As Polish fighters took to the streets, the women of the Home Army sprang into action, their months of preparation culminating in a coordinated effort to support the insurgents. The opening days of the uprising were marked by chaos and determination. The women, who had operated in the shadows, now emerged as vital players in the resistance. They delivered supplies and munitions to the front lines, often under heavy fire. Their knowledge of the city's labyrinthine streets and alleys proved invaluable, allowing them to navigate the urban battlefield with a deftness that confounded the German forces. The initial success of the uprising was due in no small part to the efforts of these women. They were the lifeblood of the resistance, ensuring that the fighters were equipped and sustained. Their ability to move unnoticed through the city allowed them to maintain lines of communication and supply, even as the Germans retaliated with overwhelming force. The German response was swift and brutal. Determined to crush the uprising, they unleashed a campaign of terror, targeting both combatants and civilians. The women of the Home Army, undeterred, continued their efforts, their resolve unbroken by the violence that surrounded them. They were driven by a fierce determination to see their city freed, their actions a testament to their courage and resilience. As the fighting intensified, the women's roles expanded. They became medics, tending to the wounded in makeshift hospitals. They coordinated sabotage operations, using their knowledge of the city to disrupt German supply lines and communications. Their efforts were not without risk. Discovery meant certain death. Yet, their commitment to the cause was unwavering. The uprising was a brutal affair, a testament to the horrors of urban warfare. The streets of Warsaw became a battleground, the city's buildings reduced to rubble. Yet, amidst the destruction, the spirit of resistance burned bright. The women of the Home Army, once overlooked and underestimated, had emerged as key players in Poland's fight for freedom. Their actions challenged the occupiers' assumptions and proved that they were far more than passive observers. They were warriors, fighting for their city and their future. As the first days of the uprising drew to a close, the women of Warsaw had proven their mettle. They had shown that they were not just supporting the resistance, they were the resistance. Their contributions were critical to the initial successes of the uprising, their courage and ingenuity a beacon of hope in a city under siege. In the midst of this turmoil, the women's networks flourished. They formed tight-knit groups, sharing information and resources, each woman's contribution amplifying the collective effort. Christina, Maria, and countless others became the backbone of the resistance, their homes transformed into hubs of activity. The once ordinary tasks of cooking and cleaning were now intertwined with acts of defiance. The women were not merely passive participants, they were strategists, planners, and fighters. As the days progressed, the insurgents faced mounting challenges. The German military, caught off guard by the uprising's ferocity, quickly regrouped. They deployed reinforcements and heavy artillery, determined to quash the rebellion. The women, however, remained resolute. They adapted to the changing dynamics of the conflict, employing guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver the enemy. The urban landscape of Warsaw, once a familiar backdrop to their daily lives, had transformed into a war zone. The women navigated through the chaos, using their intimate knowledge of the city to evade German patrols. They utilized the very streets they had walked for years to launch surprise attacks, ambushes, and sabotage missions. The women's ability to blend into the civilian population became a crucial asset, allowing them to gather intelligence and execute their plans with precision. As the uprising unfolded, the women of the Home Army also took on roles that defied traditional gender norms. They wielded weapons, engaged in combat, and led their fellow fighters into battle. The transformation of their identities was profound. They were no longer confined to the domestic sphere but had stepped into the arena of warfare, challenging the very foundations of their society's expectations. The brutality of the German response was relentless. In retaliation for the uprising, the occupiers unleashed a wave of violence against the civilian population. Executions, mass arrests, and the destruction of entire neighborhoods became commonplace. The women, fully aware of the risks, continued their efforts, driven by an unwavering commitment to their cause. They understood that the fight was not just for their own freedom but for the future of their children and their country. As the days turned into weeks, the situation in Warsaw grew increasingly dire. The German forces, though initially caught off guard, began to adapt to the resistance tactics. They employed scorched earth policies, systematically destroying neighborhoods suspected of harboring insurgents. The women of the Home Army, however, remained undeterred. They continued to deliver supplies, provide medical care, and coordinate resistance efforts, their resolve unbroken by the escalating violence. The uprising had become a symbol of hope and defiance, not only for the people of Warsaw but for the entire nation. The women's contributions were increasingly recognized, their bravery celebrated in the streets. They became icons of resistance, embodying the spirit of a nation unwilling to submit to tyranny. Their actions inspired others to join the fight, creating a surge of solidarity among the Polish people. As August drew to a close, the situation in Warsaw remained precarious. The German forces, though weakened, were far from defeated. The city was a landscape of devastation, its streets littered with the debris of war. Yet, amidst the ruins, the spirit of resistance burned brightly, fueled by the sacrifices of those who refused to surrender. The women of the Home Army had proven that they were not just supporting the resistance, they were the resistance. Their contributions were critical to the initial successes of the uprising, their courage and ingenuity a beacon of hope in a city under siege. The uprising had transformed them, revealing their strength and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. As the fighting continued, the enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army began to take shape. Their actions would be remembered not only as acts of defiance but as a testament to the power of ordinary individuals to effect change. The uprising had shattered the illusion of passive civilianhood, revealing the potential for anyone, regardless of gender, to become an agent of resistance. The women of Warsaw had emerged from the shadows, challenging the occupiers' assumptions and redefining their roles in the struggle for freedom. They had proven that courage and determination knew no gender, and their actions would inspire future generations to rise up against oppression. The Warsaw Uprising was not just a battle for the city, it was a fight for the very soul of Poland, and the women of the Home Army were at the forefront of that struggle. As the Warsaw Uprising raged on, the city became a battleground of defiance and desperation. The German forces, taken aback by the scale and intensity of the resistance, responded with a brutal crackdown. Yet, amidst the chaos, a revelation emerged that would forever alter the perception of warfare: the indispensable role of women in the struggle for freedom. In the heart of the besieged city, the women of the Home Army were not merely supporting players, they were architects of resistance. Their contributions went far beyond the traditional roles of caretakers and nurses. They were strategists, couriers, and saboteurs, operating with a level of ingenuity that caught the German occupiers off guard. Christina, a seemingly ordinary housewife, had become a linchpin in the resistance network. Her home, once a sanctuary of domesticity, was now a hub of clandestine activity. By day, she appeared to be engaged in the mundane tasks of homemaking, but by night, she orchestrated the movement of arms and intelligence across the city. Her ability to blend into the fabric of occupied Warsaw allowed her to gather crucial information on German troop movements and supply lines. Maria, another key figure in the resistance, utilized her position as a food supplier to the German garrison to smuggle explosives. Ingeniously disguised as loaves of bread and sacks of flour, these munitions were delivered to strategic locations across the city. Her courage and resourcefulness enabled the Home Army's engineers to set demolition charges under key bridges, a move that would have far-reaching implications for the German war effort. The audacity of these women was matched only by their determination. As the fighting intensified, they coordinated sabotage operations with precision and stealth. Their efforts culminated in the successful demolition of several key bridges, severing vital supply routes and hindering the German ability to reinforce their positions. This act of defiance not only disrupted the enemy's logistics but also served as a powerful symbol of resistance. The revelation of women's involvement in the uprising challenged the traditional narratives of warfare. No longer could they be dismissed as passive bystanders. They were active participants, shaping the course of history with their courage and cunning. Their contributions were a testament to the power of underestimated civilians to alter the tide of conflict. As the month of August wore on, the effect of the women's actions became increasingly evident. The German forces, struggling to maintain their grip on the city, were forced to divert resources to counter the growing threat posed by the insurgents. The bridges of Warsaw stood as monuments to the resilience and ingenuity of the Polish resistance. The role of women in the uprising was a revelation not only to the occupiers but also to the world. Their bravery and resourcefulness shattered stereotypes and redefined the boundaries of civilian involvement in warfare. As the fighting continued, their legacy would inspire others to rise up against oppression, proving that even in the darkest of times, the spirit of resistance could not be extinguished. The women of the Home Army had transformed the landscape of resistance. They were not merely supporting the fighters, they were leading the charge, their actions a testament to the power of unity and determination. The uprising had become a crucible of change, revealing the potential for ordinary individuals to become extraordinary agents of resistance. As the days turned into weeks, the women's contributions became increasingly recognized. Their stories spread throughout the city, inspiring others to join the fight. The uprising had ignited a flame of hope, a belief that freedom was within reach. The women of Warsaw had proven that they were not just housewives and mothers, they were warriors, ready to fight for their city and their future. The revelation of women's roles in warfare extended beyond the immediate context of the uprising. It challenged societal norms and expectations, paving the way for future generations to embrace their potential as agents of change. The women of the Home Army had shattered the glass ceiling of traditional gender roles, proving that courage and resilience knew no bounds. As the month of August drew to a close, the effect of the women's actions resonated throughout Warsaw. The German forces, though brutal and relentless, were beginning to feel the strain of the resistance. The bridges they had once relied upon for control were now symbols of defiance, and the women who had orchestrated their destruction were celebrated as heroes. The revelation of the women's contributions during the uprising would echo through history, ensuring that their legacy would not be forgotten. Their bravery and ingenuity became emblematic of the Polish spirit of resistance, inspiring future generations to remember the role of civilians in warfare. The uprising had transformed the narrative of resistance, proving that even the most underestimated members of society could become pivotal players in the struggle for freedom. As the fighting continued, the women of the Home Army stood resolute, their actions a testament to the enduring spirit of resistance. They had emerged from the shadows, challenging the occupiers' assumptions and redefining their roles in the struggle for freedom. Their legacy would inspire others to rise up against oppression, proving that even in the darkest of times, the spirit of resistance could not be extinguished. The revelation of women's vital roles in the Warsaw Uprising would become a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience of the human spirit. Their actions, born out of necessity and fueled by a desire for freedom, would resonate long after the smoke of battle had cleared. The women of the Home Army had proven that they were not just participants in history, they were its architects, shaping the course of their nation's struggle for liberation. As the dust settled from the initial wave of the Warsaw Uprising, the successful sabotage of the bridges marked a pivotal moment in the struggle for Polish freedom. The destruction of these vital crossings not only disrupted German supply lines but also served as a rallying point for the insurgents, igniting a fierce determination among the Polish fighters and civilians alike. However, this victory came at a steep cost, revealing the harsh realities of urban warfare and the moral dilemmas faced by those involved in the resistance. The immediate consequences of the bridge sabotage were profound. The German military, caught off guard by the audacity of the Polish resistance, scrambled to regain control. Reinforcements that were meant to bolster their positions in the city were delayed, and supply routes were severed, leaving German troops vulnerable and exposed. The insurgents, emboldened by their early successes, launched a series of coordinated attacks, targeting German garrisons and patrols with renewed vigor. The streets of Warsaw, once a symbol of oppression, transformed into a battleground of defiance, where the spirit of resistance surged through the hearts of the Polish people. Yet, the German response was swift and brutal. In a desperate bid to quell the uprising, the occupiers unleashed a campaign of terror upon the civilian population. Entire neighborhoods were razed to the ground, and indiscriminate reprisals were enacted against those suspected of aiding the resistance. The German forces, fueled by a desire to instill fear, executed summary reprisals, targeting not only the insurgents but also their families and innocent bystanders. The streets of Warsaw became a landscape of devastation, littered with the remnants of homes and lives shattered by the violence of war. In the face of such brutality, the women of the Home Army found themselves grappling with moral dilemmas that tested their resolve. They were acutely aware that their actions, while aimed at liberating their city, could lead to dire consequences for their families and neighbors. The specter of retaliation loomed large, and the knowledge that their loved ones could suffer for their involvement weighed heavily on their hearts. Yet, the desire for freedom and the hope of a better future propelled them forward, igniting a fierce determination to continue the fight. Christina, who had formerly navigated the streets of Warsaw as a mother and homemaker, found herself in the midst of a moral quagmire. Each delivery of supplies to the front lines was fraught with danger, and the fear of discovery loomed over her like a dark cloud. Yet, she pressed on, motivated by the belief that the sacrifices made today would pave the way for a brighter tomorrow. Her resolve was mirrored by countless other women who, despite the risks, refused to back down. They became the backbone of the resistance, their courage and resourcefulness shining brightly in the darkest of times. As the month of August drew to a close, the situation in Warsaw remained precarious. The German forces, though weakened by the disruption of their supply lines, were far from defeated. The city was a battleground, and the fighting was fierce. Yet, amidst the chaos, the spirit of resistance burned brightly. The women of the Home Army, undeterred by the escalating violence, continued their efforts to support the insurgents, their actions a testament to their unwavering commitment to the cause. The consequences of the uprising extended beyond the immediate tactical advantages gained by the Polish fighters. The destruction of the bridges became a powerful symbol of resistance, a testament to the courage and ingenuity of those who dared to defy their oppressors. In time, the bridges stood as monuments to the resilience of the Polish spirit. Their destruction resonated deeply within the hearts of the people, galvanizing them to continue Norway's fight for freedom. As the fighting intensified, the women of the Home Army took on increasingly prominent roles within the resistance. They became not only logistical coordinators but also strategists and combatants. Their presence on the front lines served as a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience of the human spirit. The moral dilemmas they faced were compounded by the realities of war, yet their determination to fight for their city and their future remained unshaken. The enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army was one of courage and resilience, a testament to the power of unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Their actions during the uprising challenged traditional narratives of warfare, proving that even the most underestimated members of society could become pivotal players in the struggle for liberation. The consequences of their bravery would echo through history, inspiring future generations to rise up against oppression and fight for their rights. As September approached, the situation in Warsaw remained dire. The German forces, though weakened, continued their relentless assault on the city. The streets were a battleground, and the future of the uprising hung in the balance. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, the women of the Home Army stood resolute, their transformation complete. They had become symbols of resistance, their actions a testament to the enduring spirit of a people who refused to be conquered. As the Warsaw Uprising dragged into September, the toll of the conflict became increasingly evident. The city lay in ruins, its once vibrant streets reduced to rubble. The German forces, though struggling to maintain control, unleashed a wave of violence that would leave an indelible mark on the survivors. Yet, amidst the devastation, a profound transformation was taking place among the women of the Home Army, who had emerged as symbols of resilience and defiance. The aftermath of the uprising was marked by a grim reality. The German military, determined to crush the spirit of resistance, intensified their reprisals against the civilian population. Entire neighborhoods were systematically destroyed, and the death toll among non-combatants rose alarmingly. The brutality of the German response served as a stark reminder of the high stakes involved in the struggle for freedom. Families were torn apart, and the scars of war would linger long after the fighting ceased. For the women of the Home Army, the aftermath of the uprising was a time of reckoning. Many had lost loved ones, their families shattered by the violence of the conflict. The emotional toll weighed heavily on their hearts, yet they found solace in the knowledge that their sacrifices had not been in vain. The bonds forged in the crucible of resistance became a source of strength, as they rallied together to support one another in the face of unimaginable loss. Christina, who had no longer navigated the streets of Warsaw as a mother and homemaker, had found herself transformed by the experience of the uprising. The woman who had once been invisible to the occupiers had emerged as a leader within the resistance. Her home, once a sanctuary of domesticity, became a hub of support for those who had lost everything. She organized efforts to care for the wounded and provide shelter for those displaced by the violence, embodying the spirit of resilience that defined the women of the Home Army. Maria, too, experienced a profound transformation. The seamstress who had once sewn clothes for her family now found herself stitching together the lives of those around her. She became a symbol of hope, using her skills to create makeshift uniforms for the fighters and to provide comfort to those in need. Her ability to adapt and innovate in the face of adversity became a source of inspiration for others, proving that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could shine brightly. As the fighting continued, the women of the Home Army took on increasingly prominent roles within the resistance. They became not only logistical coordinators but also strategists and combatants. Their presence on the front lines served as a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience of the human spirit. The moral dilemmas they faced were compounded by the realities of war, yet their determination to fight for their city and their future remained unshaken. The transformation of the women of Warsaw was emblematic of a broader societal change. The uprising had shattered the illusion of passive civilianhood, revealing the potential for ordinary individuals to become agents of change. The women of Warsaw had proven that courage and determination knew no gender, and their actions challenged the traditional narratives of warfare and resistance. As September wore on, the situation in Warsaw remained precarious. The German forces, though weakened, continued their relentless assault on the city. The streets were a battleground, and the future of the uprising hung in the balance. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, the women of the Home Army stood resolute, their transformation complete. They had become symbols of resistance, their actions a testament to the enduring spirit of a people who refused to be conquered. The enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army was one of courage and resilience, a testament to the power of unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Their actions during the uprising challenged traditional narratives of warfare, proving that even the most underestimated members of society could become pivotal players in the struggle for liberation. The aftermath of their bravery would echo through history, inspiring future generations to rise up against oppression and fight for their rights. As the month drew to a close, the women of the Home Army had forged a new identity, one defined by strength, defiance, and an unwavering commitment to their homeland. Their transformation was not merely personal, it was a collective awakening that would resonate long after the guns fell silent. The women of Warsaw had become warriors, their actions a testament to the enduring spirit of a people who refused to be conquered. In the aftermath of the Warsaw Uprising was a complex tapestry of loss, resilience, and transformation. The women of the Home Army had emerged from the shadows, their contributions recognized and celebrated as symbols of resistance and defiance. Their legacy would endure, a powerful reminder of the strength and resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The conclusion of the Warsaw Uprising in October 1944 marked a devastating chapter in Polish history, yet it also set the stage for a legacy that would resonate far beyond the rubble of the city. The uprising, though ultimately quashed by the overwhelming might of the German forces, became a powerful symbol of resistance and resilience, particularly highlighting the crucial roles played by women in the struggle for freedom. The aftermath of the uprising and the subsequent years of reconstruction would see the stories of these women emerge from the shadows, transforming them into icons of courage and defiance. In the immediate post-war period, Poland was left in ruins. The city of Warsaw lay devastated, its population decimated, and its infrastructure in tatters. The German occupation had wrought havoc, and the scars of the uprising were etched deeply into the collective memory of the Polish people. Yet, amid the destruction, the spirit of resistance remained unbroken. The bravery exhibited by the women of the Home Army during the uprising became a source of inspiration, galvanizing the nation to rebuild and reclaim its identity. As Poland emerged from the ashes of war, the narratives surrounding the Warsaw Uprising began to shift. Initially, the contributions of women were often overlooked in historical accounts, overshadowed by the more prominent male figures in the resistance. However, as the years progressed, historians and scholars began to recognize the vital roles that women played in the uprising. The stories of women like Christina and Maria became emblematic of a broader movement to acknowledge the contributions of civilians in warfare, challenging traditional narratives that had long relegated women to the sidelines. In the 1950s and 1960s, as Poland grappled with the realities of Soviet influence and the establishment of a communist regime, the enduring legacy of the uprising was often co-opted for political purposes. The government sought to promote a narrative of national unity and heroism, celebrating the uprising as a symbol of Polish resistance against oppression. However, the complexities of the uprising, including the diverse experiences of women, were often simplified or ignored in official commemorations. Despite this, grassroots movements began to emerge, advocating for the recognition of women's contributions to the resistance. The 1970s and 1980s marked a turning point in the commemoration of the Warsaw Uprising and the acknowledgement of women's roles within it. The rise of the Solidarity movement, which sought to challenge the communist regime, reinvigorated discussions about national identity and the importance of historical memory. Activists and historians began to highlight the stories of women who had fought alongside their male counterparts, emphasizing their bravery and resourcefulness. This period saw the publication of numerous works that documented the experiences of women during the uprising, ensuring that their contributions would not be forgotten. In 1984, the 40th anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising served as a catalyst for renewed interest in the roles of women in the resistance. Commemorative events, exhibitions, and publications began to emerge, celebrating the bravery of women like Christina and Maria. These initiatives not only honored their sacrifices but also sought to educate younger generations about the importance of recognizing the contributions of all individuals in the struggle for freedom. The narrative began to shift, with women being portrayed not merely as supporters but as integral participants in the fight for liberation. The fall of communism in 1989 further opened the floodgates for historical re-evaluation. As Poland transitioned to democracy, there was a renewed interest in exploring the complexities of its past, including the Warsaw Uprising. The stories of women in the resistance gained prominence, and their contributions were increasingly recognized in public discourse. Memorials and monuments dedicated to the women of the Home Army began to emerge, serving as powerful reminders of their bravery and resilience. One of the most significant developments in the commemoration of women's roles in the uprising was the establishment of the Warsaw Uprising Museum in 2004. This state-of-the-art facility not only chronicled the events of the uprising but also highlighted the diverse experiences of those who participated, including women. The museum's exhibits featured personal stories, photographs, and artifacts that brought to life the contributions of women like Christina and Maria. By placing their stories at the forefront, the museum played a crucial role in reshaping the narrative of the uprising and ensuring that the legacy of women in the resistance would be preserved for future generations. In addition to institutional recognition, grassroots movements continued to advocate for the acknowledgement of women's contributions to the uprising. Organizations dedicated to preserving the memory of the resistance began to emerge, often led by women who had experienced the war firsthand. These groups worked tirelessly to document oral histories, collect artifacts, and promote educational initiatives that highlighted the roles of women in the uprising. Their efforts ensured that the enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army would endure, inspiring future generations to remember the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. The effect of the women's contributions to the Warsaw Uprising extended beyond Poland's borders. Their bravery and resourcefulness became a source of inspiration for women around the world, challenging traditional gender roles and encouraging women to embrace their potential as agents of change. The enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army served as a powerful reminder that courage and determination know no gender, and their actions inspired movements for women's rights and equality across the globe. In the years following the uprising, The stories of women in the resistance began to be integrated into broader discussions about war and conflict. Scholars and activists sought to highlight the experiences of women in various conflicts, drawing parallels between the struggles faced by women in Warsaw and those faced by women in contemporary conflicts. The enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army became a touchstone for discussions about gender and warfare, emphasizing the importance of recognizing the contributions of women in all aspects of society. As the 21st century unfolded, the enduring legacy of the women of the Warsaw Uprising continued to evolve. Their stories became part of a larger narrative about the role of women in history, inspiring new generations to challenge the status quo and fight for justice. The commemoration of their contributions became a vital aspect of Poland's national identity, serving as a reminder of the resilience and strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Today, the enduring legacy of the women of the Home Army is celebrated annually during commemorative events, including the anniversary of the Warsaw Uprising. These events serve as a powerful reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought for freedom and the importance of recognizing the contributions of all individuals in the struggle for justice. The stories of women like Christina and Maria continue to inspire, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the spirit of resistance can shine brightly. In conclusion, the enduring legacy of the women of the Warsaw Uprising is one of courage, resilience, and defiance. Their contributions to the resistance challenged traditional narratives of warfare and highlighted the vital roles played by civilians in the struggle for freedom. As Poland continues to commemorate the uprising and honor the sacrifices made by its people, the stories of these women remain a powerful testament to the enduring spirit of resistance. Their legacy serves as a reminder that the fight for justice and equality is ongoing, inspiring future generations to rise up against oppression and embrace their potential as agents of change.